talk about getting our casters placed onto our traction loss axle. So I've removed my traction loss axle from the mid frame. I'm going to be doing some welding here, and because the clean surface is on the mid frame there, to save me having to continually remove beads, I'm going to separate this now that I can, now that it's our new removable adjustable rear traction loss axle. Okay, so we've got to work out a couple of things with our traction loss axle. First and foremost, make sure that you mark somehow on your axle that this is the underside. So I already did that before I removed it. I've just written on here underside. That's important. You don't want to put these on the wrong way around, otherwise you're going to be cutting them off and putting them on again. First thing we're going to do, we've got a 40mm by 40mm by 3mm thick box here. We're going to find the center of this. Now I'm just using my tool, guys, that I made in high school, my little scriber. I've set the gap up here. You probably won't be able to see this in the camera, but I've set up my gap here, guys, to be 20mm. All right, half of 40. I'm just going to place this on. I'm going to scribe right along so I've got my center. Now I'm just hanging my flange here, my coupling flange, off the edge of my table so this will sit flat. Like I bought one. Okay, we now have the center of our 40 by 40 box, which is handy because we want to place these in the center and we want them to be nice and square. Now, once again, I contemplated making up a system, guys, basically some plate, so these could be bolted and unbolted. But you know what? You don't need to. These casters, they're going to outlive you. The only thing that could possibly fail, because these are going to be welded rigid, so they won't be able to be a swivel caster anymore. They'll be welded rigid. So none of the frame or those components of these casters are going to fail, all right? You're not going to kill them. Perhaps your tyre could get damaged or your bearing might wear out. All you need to do is take the bolt out, take the wheel off, get another wheel, put it back on your frame. So we're going to hard weld these on to the traction loss axle because we can. Now again, same as our front pivot caster, these are zinc plated, so before we weld, we'll clean these up exactly like we did with the pivot caster. The other thing too, guys, I didn't mention, do make sure you clean up the ends of your box, both ends, all right? Just smooth them off with your sandpaper disc, right? And on the insides, run a file. We will plug these guys with the 40mm plugs just to make it look neat and tidy once it's been painted. Okay, so you know what you need to do, guys, to find your center here, to find your centers on your casters so you can line them up central. Now we need to talk about how these are going to be angled. What you do is you just go like that, by eye, all right? Then you put this one on roughly sort of about there, or maybe we'll put it there. You go like that, and then this one here, we'll put that one there, we'll go like that. And then that one there, that can go like that, there, like that. There we go. How does that look, guys? All right, let's stop being silly and let's go through how we get our little 80-degree offset. Okay, now one thing I can tell you, okay, and that is the doctor ain't no mathematical wizard. He knows a bit of basic maths that gets him by, all right? So, you know, some of my methods and my techniques, some people may raise an eyebrow and go, what the? But anyway, this works, guys. It's been tried, tested on the other frame, and it works. So this is the way I did it, and this is the way it works. Now, you'll need to find the center of your caster. Now, in my case, my caster plate is 70mm in width, all right? So my 35mm mark is the center of this caster frame. What you need to do, guys, you need to line the caster up when you first begin so it's straight, okay? It needs to be running in a straight direction. And then you need to mark the center of the top cup right in the center of where it sits straight, all right? All I do is I get a protractor and I place my protractor with the center of the protractor here, right at the center of the plate. There's our 80-degree mark there, right? Across here from where the center of our plate is. All I do, guys, is I just simply line that 80-degree mark up by squaring my ruler And we can square it on the front of the plate so you know that it's straight, and then run it to the 80-degree mark here. Get your Sharpie and mark along this side of the ruler here on the plate where that 80-degree mark is, and then you'll line that mark up with the 80 degrees. Okay, you can use your ruler to do that, to get that in alignment. And that's 80 degrees off 90. All right, so what will happen is this will all be loose as long as you've got these marks in. All right, this is what you'll do for each caster. So what we'll do is we'll remove the wheels now, all right, so then they don't get weld splatter and stuff like that on them, because we'll be welding inside the cup here, where the large caster frame swivels on the inside cup. So let's get these wheels off, and I can show you a little bit closer what I'm talking about. Shit flying all over the workshop, as usual. I'm pretty sure this is a 17mm. Yes, it is. Okay, so for those that are in Australia, that nut is a 17mm nut on this particular brand, the Move It brand, found at Bunnings hardware store here in Australia. Bunnings, the bane of our existence. The hardware shop that came in, well, apparently they're started by Wesfarmers, so they're meant to be Australian. But anyway, they became a multinational. They opened shops everywhere. They got all their stuff from China. They closed all of the other hardware stores down. So then now you're at their beck and call. You're at their whim, and they never have stock of anything that you actually need. So there's my little whinge at Bunnings Hardware. And did we stop them from doing it? No, because we all went there and bought shit because it was cheap. And that's what's happened to Australia's industry as well. No one bought Australian because the Chinese made it so much cheaper. So we all made our way to the Chinese products. We forced all of our own industry to close down. And now you can't buy anything that's made in Australia anymore. Ooh, that's going to get a few people offside. But I couldn't give a rat's ass. I'm saying it as I see it. Okay, so now we get that off, all right? So it's out of the way. Now we can't really get a grinder in here, guys, to get rid of the zinc plating. You're just going to weld that zinc plating in a nice ventilated area. So again, you'll line up your marks. Right, there's your 90. There's your mark to your 80. And you're going to weld that cup. You'll only have to weld it two sides, all right? I wouldn't worry about doing too much more than that. This is going to heat up the grease that's been put in here, guys, and it's going to run everywhere. There's nothing you can do about that. It'll become emulsified again once it cools down. It's just annoying in the process. But because they don't do a rigid caster, and I've looked, and they just don't do a rigid caster with these bearing insert wheels, okay? And as I said, if you don't get a bearing insert wheel, you're going to have a pretty shit traction loss experience. All right, let's get all of this junk out of the way here. All of our wheels, etc., out of the weld splatter zone. Because this can be fairly volatile as well, being zinc when we're welding it. So I'm going to put my earth on the caster frame. You'll have to wrestle. You've got to wrestle the welding clamp. And now the welding clamp actually becomes our friend because it holds it where we need it to be. Rightio, gloves, auto shade welding helmet, and air flow for our zinc so we don't die instantly from the fumes. It won't be an instant death, guys. I can assure you it'll be a slow, tedious and painful. I can't breathe because my lungs are shot death. That's why get a fan happening at the very minimum. You make sure you get a fan getting this stuff away from you. So in this case, I'm going to employ this little fella again, right near where I'm going to weld. I'm going to have my big fan on, so it's pushing everything right out. This is going to keep these fumes right away from the quack's lungs. Rightio. Fan. Let's turn this on, might be a good idea. Ha! I'm going to do 3. 1, 2, 3. You can see the flame there, guys. That's the grease. Now what you're trying to do is you're trying to bridge the outer frame here with the centre cup. You've got to do that or it won't have enough strength because of the grease. The flame! The flame! Now obviously you've got to let this cool down before you go crazy putting your wheel back on that. So that's one, guys. So put that aside until it cools down. You will be able to get your brush in there to get rid of that flux. You can see the crap running out of this already. Oh, that's come off, Mike. Let's give up on that one. So one rigid caster. Have your shop rag handy, guys. Not too close to where you're welding, but handy so then you can clean this crap up. And then set this aside and let it cool down. Okay, so this is the go, guys. This is the story, all right? The doctor can't find his Sharpie anywhere. I've evacuated it, so then it didn't get weld, splatter, or melt, and now I can't find the damn thing. Because the doctor's workshop and his bench over here, which I'm not going to let anybody see because it's an embarrassment to mankind, it's getting out of control because I'm just flat stick doing this build. I found my Sharpie. 35 because my caster plate is 70 in width. All right, get that marked in. Now, with two of the casters, peeps, this is really important. Two casters get offset this way, right, the way that I'm using the protractor to the 80. Two need to be offset the other way to 100, okay, because they sit opposite each other, the casters. So you'll do the same thing as we just did. You'll get this right centered, all right? And you'll mark the center of the top swivel, like so. Hopefully you can see this. Might move this a bit further forward. Under the camera, right. You'll put your protractor on and center it with the center of your caster plate. You'll make sure that you've got your top cup here running straight, and you'll mark the center of that. And for these two, you will measure out to the 100-degree mark, right on that 100-degree. Now place this down on the plate so the front of your ruler is square. Make sure everything's lined up. Right out to where it's at its outermost point to 100 degrees. Then come in and mark your caster at that point. Then that will go to there. And that's going to be basically a 10-degree offset, guys, from 90 degrees. That's what you're aiming for. So again, we'll take our wheel off. We'll get that into position and we'll just weld those exactly how I just showed you how to do them. Two guys pointing at 80 degrees, so 10 degrees offset to this direction, and 10 degrees offset to the other direction. So you take your time getting these set up, guys. It's easy to get these on the wrong way around, and it's just going to be a little bit annoying. I mean, technically, really, when you put them on, you can't get them the wrong way around, because even if you put them on what I would call backwards, so the way we welded them on means that our straight part of our caster frame leads at the front, okay? And it just gives a little bit more width because the wheel sits out further than if this was the other way around. If this was swiveled the other way and the angle cut, means our wheel would sit in a bit further and we're not going to get the stability that we want, okay? So you want to set these up with the straight part of the caster frame towards the front when these go on, all right? So I've just got this clamped into position at the moment. Our traction loss axle is sitting in the way that if we were looking forward, this would be attached to our mid-frame and we'd be looking to the front of our mid-frame. So this is how they need to be orientated. Again, guys, the straight and the angled and the straight will go to the front. This one's going to be located behind this one. We'll just get our first ones on first, okay? Then I can tell you the measurements that you will set up the second one, the distance between the two. But this is a good way of sort of working out how to line them up. We will actually weld these on the top, all right? So we need to clean up our box where these are going to sit, flush on the end. Just take a measurement of how long your caster plate is, mark it on your box, clean that up on the underside, guys, and then you'll be able to weld that on to a nice clean box. Getting lots of ventilation for this one, guys. Welding with the zinc. And it's a beautiful thing. So really, once you've got that first one set up, that will guide you, guys, to how to set up the others. All right, then you'll know what orientation to place these in. Now, give me a second here. I'll close my door here in the background. Just so then it doesn't steal what's going on here from my viewers. You can leave your wheel on when you do this part, guys. It's a long way away from any of the heat. It's up to you. You could take it off if you wish. I'm leaving mine on. So just a couple of decent beads, guys. They're only about 10 millimeters in length, because in the center where the stud goes through to the cups in the center, look at this. Look at this crap running down from the grease inside. Not much you can do about that. Grab your shop rag. Yeah, the centre dips down, so it's too much of a gap. So you'll only get it on the corners of the inside where the bolts would normally go through, both sides, to get these on. And that's how you get your casters on your traction loss axle. Again, that'll cool down. I suppose it's really not an axle, guys, because it doesn't rotate, all right? But I just use it. I'm just using that terminology. That's about the best thing I can come up with calling it. Okay, so we can get this the right way up now. And I can give you your measurements for placing your next caster on. Rightio. Your measurements, guys, for the next caster. Okay, you'll find your caster that is set up in the same orientation as this one, facing the same direction with the same offset, okay? And what you're aiming for, guys, is from bolt locations on the caster, center to center, you want 160 millimeters apart, all right? Once you've got that, guys, mark on this caster, on the box. I'm just using my ruler, that'll do a good job. Mark where that sits in there, guys, because you'll need to clean this up a little bit. So we'll tack these on in their locations, and then we can turn it over and weld on the other side like we did with the first caster. Okay, so that's what you'll do, and you'll line up along your center line, make sure it's square, so make sure you found your midway point of your caster plate and line it up with your scribed center of your 40 by 40 and line it up on those marks once you've measured 160 apart from center bolt to center bolt. Okay, and then do what I've said where I've marked here. Now I'm just going to clean a bit of this box off so then I can weld on here and then I'll just remeasure when I put it back down, because I'll lose my marks here. I'll just measure that 160 apart again, bolt hole to bolt hole, tack them on, turn it over, weld it like that one, and then do exactly the same with the other side, making sure that these are orientated in the opposite way though, of course. You can't go wrong. That's why we set up that first one with the traction loss axle actually turned up the way that it needs to go. So then we know we've got it orientated the right way and we don't get ourselves into trouble. Okay, so go ahead guys and get those casters on your axle. So just for reference guys, okay, the plates themselves, okay, the back of the leading plate to the front of the next caster along, they should be 70 millimeters apart, or 160 millimeters from center to center of bolt location on both. So once you've got that first one set up, like shown there, then you'll know that you've got the orientation right and their offsets right when this goes back up the right way onto the mid frame. You'll just do a couple of little tacks, all right, on the top, or the underside where we are at the moment, a couple of little tacks on the underside, and you'll be able to turn it over in the right direction and then do the welds like we did with the first one. So that's what you do guys to get your traction loss wheels on your traction loss axle. Once you've done that guys, that's complete. And there you can see guys how it will follow the arc. And I'm not talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Rightio. You guys, that is all that we have time for in this tutorial. Until the next one, you guys stay safe, stay healthy. Take it easy out there.